Everybody knows how the Kennedys got rich. Bootlegging. It is in the movies. It is in the documentaries. It is the first thing anyone says about the most famous family in American history. Here is the strange part. In 2012, a historian was handed the keys to the family's private archive. Every ledger, every letter, every bank record. He spent 10 years inside those boxes, looking for the bootlegging, and he never found it. Not one shipment, not $1. The most repeated fact about the Kennedys is the one fact their own paper trail cannot produce. Today, the legend meets the ledger. 34 claims from Chapter 6 of Fritz Springmeier's Bloodlines of the Illuminati, a rigged election, a mob mistress in the White House, a Satanist list of famous lovers, a secret the family kept for 60 years, and one footnote near the end that gives the whole book away. 3 tiers of sources, 5 possible verdicts. Let us begin. The sixth family is Kennedy. The bloodline runs from Brian Boru, High King of Ireland, through 9 centuries, to the Kennedys of Dunganstown and Wexford, and across the ocean to East Boston, where the dynasty learned its first trade, the saloon, the ward, and the ballot box. Patrick Joseph Kennedy ran the taverns and ran Ward 2, and his elections were works of art. One of his men voted 128 times in a single day. His ally and rival John Fitzgerald, Honey Fitz, took City Hall itself until a cigarette girl called Toodles ended him. And the Fitzgeralds were a mighty Italian clan who came over with William the Conqueror in 1066. The blood remembers. Then comes the patriarch, Joseph Patrick Kennedy, Illuminati banker, bootlegger. Through Prohibition, he ran liquor with the New York Mafia and the Bronfman dynasty of Canada. And when the crash of 1929 ruined the country, Joseph Kennedy shorted the market and walked out richer. Franklin Roosevelt rewarded him with the chairmanship of the new Securities and Exchange Commission, the manipulator set to guard the market, a wolf to guard the sheep. In 1938, Roosevelt sent him to London as ambassador. There, Kennedy showed his true flag. He backed appeasement, declared democracy in England finished, and worked in secret against America's entry into the Second World War while playing the patriot at home. When his own code clerk, Tyler Kent, copied 1,500 secret documents, including the private cables of Churchill and Roosevelt, Kennedy revoked the man's diplomatic immunity on the 20th of May, 1940, so the British could try him behind closed doors. No evidence was ever introduced that Kent was a spy. He had simply seen too much. And while the patriarch played diplomat, the family's old partners inherited the field. The Kennedys helped clear the way for the Mafia's golden era. The eldest son, Joseph Jr., was groomed for the White House until 1944, when he died over England on a secret mission, flying a bomber packed with explosive at a hidden German superweapon aimed at London. So the crown passed to the second son, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, thin, sickly, barely literate, an IQ of 119. His college book ghostwritten for him, and bought onto the bestseller list by his father, 30 or 40,000 copies at a time. The 1960 election was purchased. Sam Giancana of the Chicago outfit delivered Illinois, and Mayor Daley's machine padded the count. In the White House, the president swam nude with staff girls almost daily, kept a permanent suite on the 8th floor of the Mayflower Hotel for his affairs, and shared a mistress, Judith Campbell Exner, with Giancana himself. She carried the envelopes between them: Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, Zisa Gabor. And behind 2 of those women stood Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan. He discovered Monroe as a stripper and launched her career, and Mansfield served as his high priestess. In November 1963, the conspiracy collected its debt in Dallas. The Warren Commission said one man alone. The House Select Committee on Assassinations said probable conspiracy. John Kennedy gave his life to the Illuminati he served. 5 years later, Robert was shot in Los Angeles. The widow Jackie fled to the protection of Aristotle Onassis, the Illuminati king in Moriah, under a marriage contract of 170 clauses, negotiated by Ted Kennedy himself, that priced everything. $3 million down, $200,000 a year, $1 million in trust for each child, even the frequency of the marriage bed. And Ted? In July 1969, he drove his Oldsmobile off a bridge at Chappaquiddick, left a young woman named Mary Jo Kopechne to drown, waited 10 hours to call the police, and walked away with a suspended sentence. And the family's secret shame, the eldest daughter, Rosemary. In 1941, Joseph Kennedy had his own child lobotomized, and the family hid her away for the rest of her life. Follow the marriages, and the web appears. Jackie's people, the Bouvier, were tied to Standard Oil through the Auchincloss marriage to Emma Brewster Jennings, Rockefeller money one step removed. Her sister Lee married Prince Stanislaw Radziwill of the family that founded the Order of St. John in Poland in 1610. Joseph Kennedy was himself a Knight of Malta. Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House, was a descendant of the Kennedy clan. The bloodline keeps the gavel in the family. Kathleen Kick married the heir of Harrington and died young. David died of an overdose in 1984. The drink and the needle run the length of the line, the price the blood pays. And the occult floor under all of it. The Comte de Saint-Germain kept an occult court at Ermenonville with an altar of human bone. The Illuminati's satanic network runs through the suburbs to this day, 1,500 practicing Satanists in San Bernardino County alone, by the count of the ex-high priest Mike Warnke. Even death is managed. The hospice movement the Kennedy sponsored descends from the Brompton mixture, the Knights of Malta's euthanasia formula, morphine, cocaine, and alcohol, easing the inconvenient into the next world. The thing about this family is accident. The name, the money, the deaths, all of it is design. That is Chapter 6. Now we check it. Part B, the check. This chapter is unusual. It is the most checkable chapter in the book, because the Kennedys are the most documented family in America. A presidential library, a 10-year authorized biography with full archive access, congressional investigations, court records, declassified FBI files. For once, we are not short of measuring sticks. So here is how we will work. The famous claims first: the money, the war, the election, the women, Dallas, the bridge, the lobotomy. And as we go, keep one question running underneath. Where is the author getting this? Because near the end, we are going to open his footnotes and find something in them that no fact-checker expects to find. Hold that thought. Begin with the legend from the cold open. David Nassau is a historian with no motive to protect anyone. The family gave him unrestricted access to Joseph Kennedy's papers and no veto over the result. 10 years in the archive, he came out with a 900-page biography, The Patriarch, and a flat conclusion. He chased every bootlegging rumor in the record and could not verify a single incident. Not one shipment, not one partner, not $1 of liquor money before repeal. What the ledger actually shows is stranger and more interesting. Kennedy made his first fortune as a stock operator. Pools, manipulation, insider plays, all legal at the time and all ruthless. He made millions more in Hollywood, merging studios and taking his percentage. And in the fall of 1933, with repeal visible on the calendar, he flew to London and came home with the exclusive American franchise for Haig and Haig Scotch and Gordon's Gin. Legal importation, licensed in anticipation of a legal market. The 21st Amendment was ratified that December. And the Bronfman connection the book asserts runs exactly backwards. The liquor men did not set Kennedy up in business. Reinfeld Syndicate bought Somerset importers from Kennedy in 1946 at a handsome profit. The bootlegging story itself only appears in print decades later, in the late 1960s and 70s, retrofitted to make the assassination conspiracies work. Give the family a mafia debt, and Dallas explains itself. On the bootlegger, contradicted. The wolf and the sheep, though, that part is real. Roosevelt made Kennedy the first chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission in June 1934, knowing exactly what he had been. When critics howled, Roosevelt reportedly grinned. Set a thief to catch a thief. Kennedy served 431 days and, most historians concede, served them well. Confirmed. London is real too. Ambassador from 1938, openly for appeasement, openly defeatist, until November 1940, he told the Boston Globe that democracy in England was finished, and his political career ended within the month. But note the trick in the book's framing. There was nothing secret about any of this. Kennedy's isolationism was on the record, in the papers, and it destroyed him. A covert traitor does not give the interview that ends his career. On the ambassador, confirmed. On the secret conspirator, the record shows the opposite of a secret. Tyler Kent, the code clerk, is the chapter's one genuinely dark corner, so let us be precise. The core facts check out. Kent copied roughly 1,500 embassy documents, including the private Churchill-Roosevelt correspondence. Kennedy waived his diplomatic immunity on the 20th of May 1940. A British court tried him in camera under the Official Secrets Act and gave him 7 years. All of that is confirmed, and on its face, it looks exactly like a man silenced for seeing too much. Then you read the trial record. Kent was passing through the Right Club, a clandestine pro-Axis society, and his contact, Anna Wolkoff, was caught transmitting material toward Berlin through the Italian embassy. British intelligence intercepts confirmed copies of embassy documents reaching German hands. The book's line that no evidence was introduced that Kent was a spy is not just wrong. It inverts what the court established. A wartime secret trial deserves suspicion. This one, on the documents, earns its verdict. On the framing, mixed, tilting hard against the book. Joseph Kennedy Jr. Here, the book, almost accidentally, tells the truth. Operation Aphrodite stripped worn-out bombers, packed them with over 20,000 pounds of Torpex, and flew them by remote control into hardened German targets. The crew's job was to arm the load and bail out over England. On the 12th of August, 1944, Lieutenant Joseph P. Kennedy Jr.'s aircraft detonated early over Suffolk before he could jump. The target was Mimoyex, the V-3 supergun site built to shell London. He received the Navy Cross posthumously. Confirmed. And it is worth pausing on the irony. The book's Illuminati banker sent his own heir into the war. The book says he was secretly sabotaging. 1960. Illinois came down to 8,858 votes, and the story started before the ink dried. Some of it is real. The Daily Machine's precinct irregularities are well documented, and 3 Chicago election workers went to jail for vote fraud in 1962. But when scholars reran the disputed precincts, the projected fraud moved the margin from about 8,900 votes to about 8,000. Kennedy still carried the state. And the specific claim that Sam Giancana delivered Illinois rests heavily on the Giancana family's own memoir, Testimony from the House of a Murdered Mob Boss, sold as a book. Was there fraud in Chicago? Certainly. Did it decide the presidency? The arithmetic says no mixed. Now the beat where this chapter surprises us, because the wildest sounding claim in it is true. Judith Campbell Exner. Frank Sinatra introduced her to Senator Kennedy in Las Vegas in February 1960, and weeks later introduced her to Sam Giancana. For the next 2 years, she was involved with the President of the United States and the boss of the Chicago outfit in the same stretch of her life, and the FBI's surveillance files documented the overlap in real time. The Church Committee dragged it into the light in 1975, 70 telephone contacts between the White House and Judith Campbell. Her later account of carrying envelopes between the two men rests on her word, but the triangle itself is federal paper. Confirmed. Sit with that. The fact-checker's job cuts both ways, and this book occasionally holds a real card. The pattern around it is real too. The affairs, Monroe, Mansfield Circle, the White House pool, the hotel suites, are documented by biographers and Secret Service memoirs alike, though almost daily is embroidery. Mixed on the details, confirmed on the pattern. Monroe herself? The evidence supports one weekend, March 1962, at Bing Crosby's house, and no long affair. Mixed. Anton LaVey, who claimed he discovered Marilyn Monroe as a stripper and launched her career. Here the debunking was done for us, by LaVey's own biographer and by the Church of Satan itself, both of whom investigated the claim and concluded he invented it. 20th Century Fox signed Monroe in 1946 through an ordinary screen test. The burlesque house romance LaVey described has no witnesses, no dates that survive checking, and was quietly dropped, even by his own organization. The Church of Satan was not founded until April 1966, 4 years after Monroe was dead. Contradicted. Jane Mansfield did hold the ceremonial title of High Priestess in 1966, as a publicity arrangement her biographers describe, while noting she was simultaneously converting to Judaism. A stunt, not a coven. Mixed. The assassination. The book plays a familiar shell game here, so watch the records carefully. The Warren Commission. 1964. Oswald. Alone. The House Select Committee. 1979. Probably a conspiracy. A conclusion resting almost entirely on an acoustic analysis of a police radio recording said to capture a fourth shot. 3 years later, the National Academy of Sciences re-examined that recording and took the acoustic case apart. The sounds relied on came through a microphone that was not where the analysis needed it to be, at a time that did not match the shooting. The Justice Department closed the matter. No persuasive evidence of conspiracy. That is the state of the record, and the book quotes only the middle chapter of it. Every document the book cites is real. The story it builds from them stops in 1979, on the records themselves, confirmed. Oni gave his life to the conspiracy. That is not a claim about evidence at all. UNFALSIFIABLE. Chappaquiddick, July 18, 1969. On this one, the book barely needs to exaggerate. Ted Kennedy drove off the Dyke Bridge. Mary Jo Kopechne died in the submerged car. He did not report it for roughly 10 hours. He pleaded guilty to leaving the scene and received a 2-month suspended sentence. A grand jury declined to indict further. Every material element confirmed. The one thing the book gets wrong is the implication that it cost him nothing. It cost him the presidency, permanently, and every biographer of the family agrees on that. Jackie and Onassis, October 1968. The marriage is fact, so is the hard bargaining. The terms the book quotes: roughly $3 million settled up front, an annual allowance, trusts for the children, negotiated first by Ted Kennedy and then sharpened by Jackie's financial advisor Andre Meyer, appear consistently in the series biographies, confirmed in outline. But the flourish that makes the story famous, a 170-clause contract scheduling everything down to the marriage bed, traces to exactly one source, a 1972 tell-all by a former Onassis steward, never authenticated, denied by the people in the room. Mixed. And Onassis as the Illuminati King and Mariah is an invented title with no documentary basis anywhere, unsupported, though Onassis will get his own chapter in this series, and the book will get its full hearing then. The Bouvier Web. Quickly. The Standard Oil connection is real but garbled. It was Jackie's mother who married into the Auchincloss family, the stepfather, not the sister, and the Auchincloss fortune did descend from a Standard Oil founder's daughter. Confirmed. With the genealogy drawn wrong. Lee did marry Prince Radziwill. Confirmed. The Radziwills, founding the Order of St. John in Poland in 1610, is not the history any chivalric order recognizes. Mixed. And Joseph Kennedy, Knight of Malta, he held a papal honor, and the book inflates it into membership of a conspiratorial order. Mixed. Now the secret the family actually kept, and a name this series has met before. In November 1941, Joseph Kennedy arranged a prefrontal lobotomy for his 23-year-old daughter Rosemary. The surgeons were James Watts and Dr. Walter Freeman, the same man whose lobotomobile we followed in the last episode. Rose Kennedy was not told until after it was done. The operation destroyed Rosemary. She spent the next 6 decades at a care facility in Wisconsin, written out of the family's public story until her death in 2005. All of that confirmed. The definitive account is Kate Clifford Larson's biography, built on the family's own papers. What the book adds, that the lobotomy was satanic mind control, has no support anywhere. The documented motive, cold enough on its own, was reputation. A family managing its image with a surgical instrument does not need the devil explained into it. Unsupported on the occult reading. The rest of the family cost ledger, briefly, because the book sprays claims here. Kathleen Kick married William Cavendish, heir to the Duke of Devonshire. The book misnames him Harrington. Widowed in the war, dead in a plane crash in 1948. Confirmed, name wrong. David Kennedy died of an overdose in Palm Beach in 1984. Confirmed. Jack's IQ, recorded at 119, a real Choate-era number, attached to barely literate, about a Pulitzer-winning president whose reading speed was legend. Next, and the insult does the arguing. Why England slept ghostwritten by the historian Wheeler Bennett. No evidence. The heavy editorial hand was the columnist Arthur Crock's, which is a different and better documented story. Unsupported. His father bulk buying 30 to 40,000 copies, told by Crock himself, never documented in the accounts. Mixed. The Boston ancestors. Honey Fitz was mayor twice, and the Toodles scandal is real. His rival Curly threatened a public lecture series on great lovers in history, and Fitzgerald left the 1914 race within days. But the book garbles his exit from Congress. He was unseated in 1919 when the House investigated his contested election and gave the seat to his opponent. Machine politics ending, mangled in the retelling. Mixed. P.J. Kennedy. Saloons. Ward 2, 30 Years of Quiet Power, confirmed in outline. The 128 votes anecdote survives in exactly one family reminiscence, so enjoy it as folklore with a wink. And here is the pattern worth naming. The true material in this chapter is ward bosses and vote padding, ordinary, greasy, documented machine politics. The book keeps dressing it in robes. And now the footnotes, because we promised. Start with the genealogy. Brian Boru. The Kennedy surname does descend from the Dalgy-Kays dynasty of Brian Boru's father, along with millions of other Irish people. Sharing a 1,000-year-old ancestor with half of Munster is not an occult inheritance. It is Ireland. Mixed. The Fitzgeralds, an Italian clan who helped William the Conqueror in 1066. The Fitzgeralds are Hiberno-Norman, descended from Gerald of Windsor, and they reached Ireland with the Norman invasion of 1169, a century after Hastings, from Wales, not Tuscany. There is a medieval legend linking them to the Gherardini of Florence, delightfully, the family of the woman in the Mona Lisa, but it is a legend, and the book has garbled even its own borrowed myth, contradicted. Which brings us to Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House, descendant of the Kennedy clan. We went looking for the source of that claim. It is a novel. The Widow's Son, published 1985 by Robert Anton Wilson, the satirist whose fiction built half of modern Illuminati mythology and who spent his life explaining, patiently, that he had made it up. There is no genealogical connection. O'Neill's link to the Kennedys was a congressional seat, not blood. A chapter asking us to believe in a 1,000-year conspiracy is citing, as evidence, a work of published, acknowledged fiction, unsupported. And remember this beat, because it is not the last time this author's sources will collapse on contact. Because here is Mike Warnke, the book's authority for 1500 Satanists in San Bernardino. Warnke's entire satanic past, the coven, the high priesthood, all of it, was exposed as fabricated in 1992 by two Christian journalists who interviewed over 100 people from his college years and published the photographs. The era he claimed to be a drug-addicted high priest, he was a clean-cut Christian student. The expose ran 3 years before this book went to press. Springmeier cites him anyway. Contradicted. The Comte de Saint-Germain's occult court at Ermenonville, with its altar of human bone, no source, no document, nothing, unsupported. And the strangest claim in the chapter, the Brompton mixture as a Knights of Malta euthanasia formula. The Brompton cocktail was real, a pain control preparation from a London chest hospital, morphine and cocaine and alcohol given to the dying in the era before modern palliative medicine. It fell out of use in the 1970s, replaced by the titrated morphine regimens pioneered by Cicely Saunders, the founder of the modern hospice movement, one of the most decorated humanitarians in British medicine. The book looked at the people who invented dying with dignity and wrote them down as a murder cult. Ted Kennedy did once address a hospice organization. That is the entire factual content. Contradicted. 34 claims. The board. The Kennedys as an Illuminati bloodline. UNFALSIFIABLE. Brian Boru ancestry. Mixed. Shared with half of Ireland. Joseph Kennedy, the bootlegger. Partner of Mafia and Bronfmans. Contradicted. First chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Confirmed. Ambassador, appeasement, democracy is finished. Confirmed. And publicly ruinous, not secret. Tyler Kent silenced. No evidence of spying. Mixed. The court record shows the opposite. Joseph Jr. killed on the V3 mission. Confirmed. The 1960 election stolen in Illinois. Mixed. Fraud real. Outcome unchanged. Exner, the president in Giancana. Confirmed. The affairs pattern, pool, suites. Mixed to confirmed. Almost daily overstated. Monroe, the long-term mistress. Mixed. One documented weekend. LaVey discovered Monroe. Contradicted. Mansfield, the high priestess. Mixed. A publicity title. Dallas, the Warren and House Committee records. Confirmed as records. He gave his life to the conspiracy. UNFAL. SIFIA-BLE. Chappaquiddick. Confirmed. The Onassis marriage and hard prenuptial. Confirmed in outline. The 170 clause contract. Mixed. One unverified tell-all. Onassis, Illuminati king and Mariah. Unsupported. Rosemary's lobotomy. Confirmed. The lobotomy as satanic mind control. Unsupported. Kick's marriage to Harrington. Confirmed. Wrong name. David Kennedy's overdose. Confirmed. Jack barely literate, IQ 119. Mixed. Why England slept, ghost written by Wheeler Bennett. Unsupported. The bulk bought bestseller, mixed. Bouvier standard oil tie, confirmed, drawn on the wrong branch. Lee and Prince Radziwill, confirmed. The Radziwill Order of St. John, 1610, mixed. Joseph Kennedy, Knight of Malta, mixed. A papal honor, inflated. Honey Fitz, Toodles, and the house exit, mixed. P.J. Kennedy, saloon ward boss, confirmed. The Italian Fitzgeralds of 1066, contradicted. Tip O'Neill, Kennedy, by blood, unsupported, source to a novel. Warnke's 1500 Satanists, contradicted, a confessed fabricator. Saint Germain's Bone Altar, unsupported. The Hospice Euthanasia Conspiracy, contradicted. The Tally, 9 confirmed, 12 mixed, 6 unsupported, 6 contradicted, 1 unfalsifiable. And the chapter's most famous claim, the one everybody knows, sits in the contradicted column, put there by the family's own archive. Here's what the Kennedy chapter really is. It is built on a 70% true frame and one specific lie that everyone repeats. The true frame is damning enough. Joseph Kennedy was a market manipulator, handed the market's keys. He did back appeasement and talk his way out of public life. He did put his daughter under the ice pick and bury the fact for 60 years. The election machine, the affairs, the bridge at Chappaquiddick, real, documented, and none of it flattering. A book that only wanted to indict this family could have written every word from the public record. Instead, it needed them to be servants of a design, and for that it needed the lie. The bootlegger myth is the hinge. Give the family a mafia debt, and Dallas becomes a settling of accounts. 10 years in the archive could not find it. The man who looked had every incentive to find it. No biographer ever suffered from a scandal. It is not there. And when we opened the footnotes, we found a novel cited as genealogy, and a confessed fabricator cited as a witness 3 years after his exposure. That is this book's method in one sentence: real tragedy, wearing borrowed robes, standing on invented sources. Next, the Lee family. The most common surname on earth, and a chapter that depends entirely on that fact. The surname trick we caught in the Freeman chapter is about to be played on a fifth of the human race.